most compelling of language. That's what you find in the best-selling books, and we will look at those, and there are many of them. But most of all, this introduction to Merton will be about the search for wholeness itself. I don't want this to be a place where you simply glean information about a famous 20th century Christian. I want you to find help on your own way. That is, in fact, what Merton wanted to do with all his writing. Help readers find God and themselves, hopefully on paths that converge. About the search for wholeness, Merton was always certain. And by the end of his life, he may even have found what he was looking for. We'll see. You'll be ready to decide that for yourself before we're done. He confuses a lot of people. We are all secrets, Merton wrote one day in his private journal. In other words, there are limits to how much we can understand ourselves, let alone each other. Particularly, we can't presume to understand someone else's religious or spiritual life. What is on the surface tells only a fraction of their story. Another 20th century favorite of mine is Edith Stein, the Jewish philosopher who converted to Roman Catholicism, became a Carmelite nun, and then died in a Nazi concentration camp. The Nazis didn't care if a Jew had converted to another religion. After her tragic death, Stein became a saint in the estimation of the Catholic Church, whereas I'm sure Merton never will receive such an honor. More on that later. She's officially known in the Church as Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. Still, her niece once asked her about her conversion to Catholicism from Judaism, and Edith responded with a Latin phrase, Secretum meum mihi, my secret is mine. I think you'll find that this is very true of Merton as well, before you're done reading about his life, writings, and spiritual practices. Our secrets are our own, particularly when it comes to who we are in our relationship with a God who, when communicating with us, if at all, often does so in a whisper. This is one way of suggesting that we'll never fully understand our subject. It is also a way of saying that Merton's willingness to consistently and consciously be on pilgrimage, to talk with us while he's searching for what he's looking for, and to acknowledge that the search never stops in this life, that the answers are not often clear or simple, makes him an evergreen teacher of spiritual wisdom. Popularly understood, he was a contemplative monk who introduced the possibility of a deep religious and spiritual life, something one might imagine exists only in a monastery, as available to anyone, whether they lived in a cloister or a city, were Christian or some other religious tradition, and whether or not they felt certain in their beliefs. His own life was full of contradictions, as we will soon see, and it is these very contradictions that also make him appealing to us still. He seems to have found a real and deep personal connection to the living God, and yet some of his actions reveal how very human he remained. Yet that core understanding, that a monastic sort of life might be available to you wherever you live, remains compelling. Given that he was a monk, it is a wonder that we even know his name. He entered a strict monastery at the age of 26, saying that he was no longer going to be a writer, that writing was mostly about ego, and that as a monk he was instead going to be a person of asceticism and prayer. If things had gone for him the way they went for 99.9% of the monks before him, Merton would have prayed and practiced his penance earnestly and quietly, and then died in blissful obscurity. That's the way of most cloistered monks. But before he turned 35, he wrote one of the best-selling autobiographies ever published, the one I mentioned already, titled The Seven-Story Mountain. The first edition of that book, in its original binding and dust jacket, will cost you about $7,500 the last time I checked. It is valuable today as a collector's item because the publisher did not print many of them. Who knew that such a book would be the best-selling nonfiction book in the United States that year? The original publisher, Harcourt Brace, also got in trouble for one of the captions to one of the photographs on the back cover.